Hello everyone, I'm Sahba Zojaji, a PhD student at Embodied Social Agents Lab at KTH in Sweden. This presentation concerns a study about the influence of virtual agent politeness behaviors and how users join small conversational groups. A common pattern of human interaction involves the formation of small groups of individuals that gather and stand together in an environment to converse. Forming and joining small groups may seem simple to adults, but conducting socially appropriate behavior is often context-sensitive, subtle, and complex. Failing to do it can cause offense and have negative repercussions, even if unintended. In order to navigate complex social landscapes, one must learn the difference between how others view polite and impolite behaviors. For example, when joining a group, not violating others' personal space. Understanding these group behaviors is desirable in many different areas, including social robotics and agents. This study investigates the impact of politeness strategies when used by a virtual agent to persuade a participant to take longer routes, which needs more effort to join a small conversational group of virtual agents. The expressive behaviors of the agent which invites the participant into the group may have negative impact on the user's perception of agent's behavior. Therefore, this study explores also the participant's perception of politeness of the agent's behavior using 4 measures: clarity, loss of face, positive and negative face. The background of this work is in 2 domains in the area of human social behaviors: group theory and dynamics, and politeness theory. Kendon proposed sociospatial formations called F-formations that describe the common space management in a group. An F-formation is an organization of 3 social spaces, O space, P space, and R space. F-formations and other theories have been applied to computational analysis methods, user studies, data sets involving small groups. These are just a few of the works that have formed a basis for the development of artificial models for use by virtual agents and mobile robots that are either member of a group and must make way for newcomers, or are capable of joining a group in a more socially aware manner, for example, by taking into account social body cues. However, to the best of our knowledge, there is no work investigating the effect of politeness strategies on the approaching and joining behavior of an individual into a group. According to Brown and Levinson, politeness relates to efforts to mitigate or avoid face-threatening acts. A face-threatening act is a verbal, paraverbal, or nonverbal act which damages an individual's public self-image. There are 5 main types of politeness strategies as shown in the table here. In this study, these 5 politeness strategies were used as a basis for defining 5 corresponding verbal and nonverbal politeness behaviors used by the virtual agent to invite a newcomer, the participant, to join the group. From this, we define the experiment's conditions. The experiment had 6 conditions, which are shown in the table. It illustrates all the experiment conditions. They are related politeness strategies and explains the verbal and nonverbal behaviors of the agent in each experiment condition. The figures below the table also show the agent's behaviors on their relevant conditions. Each participant saw all experiment conditions. The ordering of these conditions were counterbalanced across participants according to a Latin square design. The 6 conditions of each experiment were repeated 3 times, thus each experiment consisted of 3 blocks of the same 6 conditions in the same order as the first block, resulting in a total of 18 trials. The experiment used a within-subject design. 30 participants were recruited for this experiment. This scenario that you can see here was presented on the screen at the beginning of each experiment to each participant to provide them with the experiment's context. The avatar is initialized behind the pre-existing group of two agents that are in a face-to-face group formation. The group appears rotated with respect to the avatar's starting position. The group and avatar initialization positions and orientations were selected in order to provide a least effort, straightforward path for the participant to join the group. However, the virtual agent which faces the avatar and invites them into the group typically requests them to join the group at the opposite side, which requires substantially more effort to reach. The participant could control the avatar using up and down keys on the keyboard to move forward and backwards, and they could turn the avatar's body to right and left via the right and left keys on the keyboard. Therefore, while participants could take a direct route to the closest region, C, to join the group, their trajectory towards the farthest region, F, was typically piecewise, as exemplified by orange curve in the figure on the right, rather than smooth as shown by the yellow curve. In each trial, as the participant-controlled avatar approached the group, a clearly visible agent in the group acknowledged their presence by smiling and looking at them. According to the active condition in the trial, it then engaged in one of the 5 different verbal and nonverbal behaviors which were created based on the politeness theory described before. The participant was then free to join the group in any manner they wished. The distance that a participant would need to walk in the virtual environment to reach F is roughly twice that to reach C, as it can be observed by the video's durations also. Thus, in addition to the constraints of the keyboard control method for moving to F, the path to F also required greater time and effort to traverse. After joining, the group participant was asked to respond to 4 questions about their perception of politeness of the agent's behavior in that trial. A repeated measure ANOVA with condition as a within factor and persuasiveness, clarity, loss of face, positive and negative face as dependent variables was conducted on the data collected from the study. The first measure relates to persuasiveness, that is, the effect of politeness strategy on the participant's decision about the joining region to the group. Significance bars are displayed in different colors to facilitate finding differences between the various conditions. A Bonferroni post-hoc comparison suggests that direct strategies are more persuasive, with a significant difference between the conditions baseline, indirect, and the remainder of conditions. Also, participants were persuaded significantly more to join to the farthest region when the agent proposed for them to join, rather than asked them to do so. The second measure relates to clarity, that is, the effect of politeness strategy on perception of the clarity of the request. Clarity refers to how well participants think they understood the agent's request. Bonferroni post-hoc comparison shows that the baseline condition had the least clarity. Furthermore, while at the first glance reported clarity of indirect condition is on par with most of direct strategy, it is possible that participants only thought they clearly knew what the agent wanted them to do, but they actually didn't. This is supported by the persuasiveness scores for the indirect condition, which are significantly lower than the explicit strategy conditions. The third measure relates to loss of face, that is, the effect of politeness strategy on the perception of offensiveness of the agent's request. A Bonferroni post-hoc comparison indicates that the most offensive condition were the most direct and explicit ones, commanding and pointing. The fourth measure relates to positive face, that is, the effect of politeness strategy on the perception of friendliness of the agent's request. Bonferroni post-hoc comparison shows that those conditions perceived to be the friendliest by the participants were indirect, asking, and proposing. The last measure relates to negative phase, that is the effect of politeness strategy on the perception of freedom of action of the participant. A Bonferroni post-hoc comparison shows that commanding and pointing conditions made participants feel the most constrained in terms of their freedom of action. Also, proposing condition gave participants less freedom of action than the indirect and asking conditions, but significantly more than commanding and pointing ones. Overall, the results suggest that more direct and explicit strategies are more persuasive in relation to the participant, expending the time and effort required to join the group at an inconvenient location. Research in psychology suggests that given a choice between similarly rewarding options, humans avoid those that require more work or effort. Generally, this is in line with our findings. When there was no clear instruction or clue about joining region, participants took the least effort approach and joined the group directly at the closest region. A possible reason that more explicit and direct strategies are more persuasive is that they provide clearer clues or goals for participants to follow. The friendliest conditions that respected the positive face of the participants were indirect, asking, and proposing. Asking and proposing conditions still achieved a high success rate for persuasiveness. Especially proposing was as successful in terms of persuasiveness as both commanding and pointing. Based on these results, proposing, which relates to the positive politeness strategy, appears to be the best strategy for the virtual agent to persuade participants. It had a relatively high success rate at 7% for persuading participants to join the group at the farthest region while avoiding a negative perception of the agent's request. Politeness could be defined differently across cultures, and questions remain as to how the results in this study might map across cultures. In the future, we are planning to conduct similar studies in virtual reality so that participants can engage in more natural locomotion behaviors. This relates to our longer-term goal of conducting similar experiments with physical robots. Furthermore, using gaze behaviors and orienting of body to indicate a position to move to is another interesting future direction of this study. To conclude, the results of this study indicate that more direct strategies, while leading to a higher success rate, may be considered more offensive, less friendly, and having less freedom of action by users. Overall, the positive politeness strategy was found to be the most effective for both persuasive success and maintaining a positive impression of the agents with participants. Thank you very much for your attention.